Hi everybody, and thank you for joining us today for the Johns Manville Industrial Product Webinar. My name is Kim Melton and I'm going to be the moderator for today's presentation. Joining me is Hal Shapiro, also from Johns Manville. Before we get into introductions, however, I would like to go over a few logistics. First, we will conclude the presentation with a live Q&A session, so if you have any questions throughout the presentation, you can actually submit those via the Q&A box on the right side of your screen. Now, if you don't see that box on the right side of your screen, simply click the Q&A in the top right corner, and that's going to open a dialog box that you can use to submit your questions. So we're also frequently asked whether or not we send out these presentations upon their conclusion, and while we don't actually send out the presentation itself, we do post a recording of it online for you to watch at your leisure or share with your colleagues. So this ensures that you can have the presentation within its full context. Now, what's unique about the webinar today is that it's strictly about JM products. So while we typically offer a myriad of educational webinars on high-priority industry topics, today's webinar is a response to many requests we've had to go over JM products specifically. So that's what we're here to do today. And this is all part of how we deliver the JM experience to you. At Johns Manville, the JM experience is part of our culture, and it's based on 4 pillars, and that's people, passion, perform, and protect. So we offer webinars like this one to help educate the market and offer a tool and a resource for you and your business. We're also continually striving to improve and evolve these webinars. So if you have any comments or suggestions as to how we can better accomplish this, or even if maybe you feel like we've missed the mark today, we'd encourage you to fill out the survey you're going to receive after the webinar. We use your feedback to improve our webinars and provide information that has the most value to you. So on that note, let's get to introductions. Hal, could you take a couple minutes to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Kim, and thank you all for attending the webinar today. I know your time is valuable, and we appreciate you taking the time to learn more about industrial insulation. I have 11 years of product experience with respect to construction materials and over 4 years of experience in the insulation business associated with high-temperature insulation materials. I'm excited to be able to present today because I think we have a lot of new opportunities with respect to Johns Manville products, and we're going to go through those throughout this presentation. So starting off, why do we insulate? Insulation is core to JM's values that Kim mentioned, of perform and protect. As an owner, insulation has the fastest payback with respect to investment. That's performance. This is accomplished in 2 ways, one being reduced energy consumption and the second being process control. Process control controls your operational costs, reduced energy consumption, reduce your impact on environment, as well as your operational costs. From a protect standpoint, I mentioned the reduced impact to the environment, but also protect your people by allowing for personnel protection with regards to the insulation materials, as well as protect your equipment with respect to corrosion. As an engineer, there are a number of design considerations to be considered. At JM, we understand that CUI protection, long-term durability, and thermal performance are key for some applications. Other criteria are important for different applications, such as passive fire protection. We developed the PART tool, the Product Application Rating tool, in order to enable the ability for an engineer or a design professional to rank order products based on the applicable design criteria that they need for that application specifically. That application tool is located at jm.com. We believe that every application is different, and there are optimal solutions for each. With a breadth of insulation solutions included that JM produces, JM is your solutions provider for high-temperature insulation materials, whether that be calcium silicate, expanded perlite, mineral wool, fiberglass, or hydrophobic microporous blanket. There are other materials that are suitable for low-temperature applications, such as silica aerogel, cellular glass, polyisocyanurate, or phenolic foam, and needle D-glass and silica aerogel for higher temperature applications. So in addition to the materials that I mentioned, Johns Manville also produces an accessory line which includes products for adhesives, coatings, and cements. There are other components that go into an insulation solution, including coatings and metal jacketing. Those are solutions that Johns Manville does not produce, and those will be solutions, or those are items that we cover in other Johns Manville sponsored events like the Masters Product Information Workshop. Going into calcium silicate, we produce 3 different types of calcium silicate. Thermo 1200 is a new but old product. It replaces our Thermo 12 Gold by adding an additional feature with water resistance and provides a belt and suspenders approach with the corrosion inhibitor we call XOX. This is an opportunity for both corrosion resistance from a water repellency standpoint as well as a chemical corrosion resistance inhibitor. Super Firetemp and Super Caltemp Gold 1700 are primarily designed for fire protection. High density Super Firetemp is designed for non-wetting direct contact metal applications. So if you've got a steel application where you're smelting steel and you've got a dam or a trough that you need to have insulating material direct in contact with that material, those are the products specifically for that type of application. As I mentioned, Johns Manville produces a wide array of insulation materials for various applications. Going into the benefits of calcium silicate insulation, we're looking at applications that require exceptional durability and product longevity. Superior corrosion resistance is available in Thermo 1200 only because that is the product that has both XOX and water resistant to it. Super Firetemp and Super Caltemp Gold 1700 do not contain XOX. From a time savings during installation, if you have 2 half sections of material, it's easier to install. Those would be molded products for pipe insulation. Water resistance as part of Thermo 1200 also provides contractors with enough time to install, and if there is a pop-up rainstorm, to be able to leave the material exposed for a brief period of time in order to not have to tear it off again. From a passive fire protection standpoint, all of our calcium silicate products are listed for API 521. We'll talk a little bit more about passive fire protection as we go through this presentation. Looking at the 3 different products, Thermo 1200 is exceptional from a compressive strength standpoint. It also is used as the primary for insulation, whereas Super Caltemp Gold and Super Firetemp are primarily used for fire protection applications. If you look at Super Firetemp and Super Caltemp Gold, they're primarily used for passive fire protection for equipment and for structural applications. The densities for these products are higher, the compressive strength for these products are higher, and their temperature ratings are higher than Thermo 1200. Thermo 1200 is the insulation workhorse. It has got exceptional compressive strength, as I mentioned, as well as superior thermal performance, which we'll discuss as we go through here. One of the new features with the Thermo 1200 material is that it is a water repellent material. What this means is that it absorbs less than 15% water by weight over a 20-minute period in a moderate to heavy rainstorm. There is no ASTM test method currently to measure this. We developed this and used historic data with respect to a heavy rainstorm in the states around the Gulf of Mexico to simulate this type of behavior. We developed this product initially specifically based on feedback from contractors at an event that we had. All of them mentioned, wouldn't it be great if we didn't have to take off this material when it rains, which it happens to do very frequently in the Gulf states. ASTM C533 requires that the material be stripped off if there's more than 20% weight gain after the rainstorm. As you can see, based on the test data that we have, we perform better than that. This product enables contractors to install the material easier, faster, and not necessarily have to cover the material quickly if there's a pop-up rainstorm. So as I mentioned, it gives more time for a contractor to install the jacketing. It has the potential for improved efficiency with respect to not having to cover up the material when those pop-up rainstorms occur. It is definitely still not a hydrophobic material. Hydrophobicity means the material will not absorb water. We are not saying that this product does that. It still has the corrosion inhibitor XOX, which provides that additional protection, and we'll discuss what XOX corrosion inhibitor is on the next slide. So XOX is integral to the formulation of Thermo 1200. It's also integral to Thermo 12 Gold, the predecessor to Thermo 1200. 95% of the chemistry of the product is 5 corrosion inhibiting silicate ions. What those ions do, they do two things. The first, they provide a buffering agent in order to neutralize acids that are collected in water that are next to the pipe. The second thing that it does is it applies an oxidation layer at the pipe surface, inhibiting the corrosion, encouraging that circuit to be broken and not create the corrosive pitting that you would typically see in an application that does not have XOX corrosion inhibitor. The next slide is ASTM 1617. It is a test method, and it is the broadest accepted measure for corrosivity of material with respect to insulation. The test method is in all insulation product standards. Calcium silicate and expanded perlite insulation require that the tested values are less than deionized water, a lower corrosive solution, while silica aerogel and mineral wool and microporous blankets are required with tested values less than 5 parts per million chloride solution, which is more corrosive. In layperson terms, this chart is a scale of A to D, where A inhibits the most and D inhibits the least. Now that we understand the benefits of Thermo 1200, we can move on to Super Firetemp and Caltemp for passive fire protection applications. Some of the keys with regards to Firetemp and Caltemp from a benefit standpoint are they install easy in any temperature. When you think about intumescent coatings or cementitious fire protection, those have to be installed in temperatures that are 40 degrees and rising typically. This material can be installed because it installs like drywall. You basically box in an element, a structural element, and you can screw it together. It's a very clean install, and the ease of inspection is just the same. You don't have to strip off any material. All you have to do is unscrew the board, look behind for corrosion under fire protection, and then screw the board back in order to maintain that fire protection around that member. So some frequently asked questions that we get with regards to calcium silicate are, should I use calcium silicate or perlite? I think it depends on the application. When we look at it from a surface standpoint, Calcil and perlite are very similar. They have very similar properties. From a thermal standpoint, calcium silicate performs better. Perlite is a little bit more fragile. So it depends on the application. It depends on the contractor installing. Calcium silicate is a bit more forgiving. How long can I leave it exposed to a rainstorm? With the Thermo 1200 material, we receive that question quite a bit. When we think about this, we do not recommend that a material be left unjacketed for an extended period of time. However, if a pop-up rainstorm occurs and the material absorbs less than 20% moisture absorption, you can leave it on the pipe. It will dry out and you'll be able to install the jacketing. Now that we've answered most of the questions about calcium silicate, we'll take more questions on calcium silicate at the end of the presentation. Moving on to expanded perlite. Expanded perlite has a number of benefits. Our product is Sproule WR1200. This has been a historic name for this product. It is blue in color. When we look at expanded perlite benefits, it has superior corrosion resistance because it is hydrophobic, which means it won't absorb moisture, and it has the XOX Corrosion Inhibitor in it. We shrink wrap this product in order to prevent abrasion during travel and transport because it is a friable material and abrasive to itself. And care must be taken with this material because of the fragile and friable nature of it. As I mentioned in the bullet above, it can be brittle and it can break during shipping and installation. We have heard feedback that in excess of 20% additional material needs to be purchased in order to accommodate for that breakage. When we look at perlite performance, the real key to the performance of perlite is that it is an exceptional material with regards to the mitigation of stress corrosion cracking on stainless steel. The compressive strength is good. The XOX corrosion inhibitor inhibits that corrosion, as well as the hydrophobicity of the material to keep moisture off the pipe. However, there are drawbacks with regards to perlite performance, and those drawbacks are associated with thermal conductivity. So when we look at the comparison between Sproule WR1200 and Thermo 1200, perlite is inherently hydrophobic. Calcium silicate is now water resistant. The properties are similar with regards to compressive strength and the fact that they both have extremely high compressive strength compared to mineral wool and other products available. Densities are very similar as well. The thermal conductivity is different though. If we look at a 600-degree pipe that is 6 inches in diameter, you'll need 3 inches of expanded perlite insulation versus 2.5 inches of calcium silicate insulation. That is one of the key differences, especially as you look at higher temperature applications. You'll see that we'll revisit the C1617 corrosion test method within this presentation frequently. As you look at Sproule WR1200, you can see that the corrosive properties, the corrosivity of the material is similar to Thermo 1200, and it's still better than the deionized water that is required by the ASTM C612 standard. So 3 of the questions that we get most frequently are, can Sproule WR1200 be used for passive fire protection? The answer is yes. It is listed as in API 521 as an option to be used for passive fire protection. It is best to refer to Johns Manville, the producer of Sproule WR1200, or your engineering community in order to determine what thickness you need. Does hydrophobic mean better CUI mitigation? The answer to this question is depends. Not necessarily. Hydrophobic means that the material will not absorb water. Doesn't necessarily mean that it will provide better CUI mitigation. Hydrophobicity oxidizes above 600 degrees Fahrenheit. So if you have an application that's cycling between 600 and 300, you may oxidize your hydrophobicity and therefore not have that type of protection that you thought you needed. However, both Thermo 1200 as well as Sproule WR 1200 have XOX Corrosion Inhibitor in the product in order to enhance the corrosion mitigation. The third question is, can perlite be made more durable? There are a number of ways to make perlite more durable. However, there are trade-offs with regards to that durability. Thermal performance is a trade-off. Other trade-offs can be considered have to do with operational manufacturing of the product. We continue to improve Sproule WR 1200 with respect to that durability. However, will it be as durable as calcium silicate? It's not necessarily possible to do that. Now that we've covered two of the three water repellent materials that Johns Manville currently produces, perlite being hydrophobic, we're moving to hydrophobic microporous blanket. This is our InsulThin HT product. InsulThin HT has a number of benefits. Some of these benefits are it's thin, so it applies well for space-constrained applications. It's also a blanket material, which means that it can wrap large diameter equipment, vessels, piping very quickly and efficiently. It has very low thermal conductivity, and that thermal conductivity is consistent through the temperature range of operations. It can be used in a hybrid system for performance enhancement as well as budgetary constraints. This material is very similar to an anecdote that I like to use. That anecdote is, back in the early 1990s, phones were the size of bricks. When Motorola introduced its Razr phone, which was a very thin profile phone, that phone was about 3 times the cost of the bricks. This is very similar to that application in the fact that molded products are a lower cost option than hydrophobic microporous blankets that are thinner profile. And again, we'll refer to C1617 because this product as well has excellent CUI mitigation properties. When we look at the performance of this product, the compressive strength is lower than both calcium silicate and expanded perlite. However, it does have a thinner profile, so it's closer to the pipe. Therefore, you get a little bit more performance from a support standpoint. And it's a great, again, as I mentioned, for space constraints as well as for large equipment. We'll talk more about thermal shift in a couple of slides, as well as the corrosion resistance of this material. But I do want to mention, this product does not have the XOX Corrosion Inhibitor. So what is thermal shift? Thermal shift is a permanent change in insulation material's thermal conductivity because of exposure due to high temperature. It's a function of temperature and time. At 600 degrees and higher, it happens very quickly. At lower temperatures, it happens slower. However, it is a measured and measurable shift in thermal properties. We'll cover that on the next page. However, there are risks to the performance and process control of your system. There's risks with respect to personnel safety and exposure to exterior heat on those pipes and equipment, and you lose and consume more energy with respect to energy consumption and heat loss. This is what, in a chart, the thermal shift looks like. We'll start in the lower right-hand corner with InsulThin HT. As you can see, the blue line and the red line are on top of each other. The first cycle is cycled up, the second cycle is cycled up, the performance is consistent, and it's consistently below the ASTM C1676 Microporous product standard requirements. If we move to Silica Aerogel, the ASTM product standard is C1728. The first cycle, some of the data points are within that limit. As it cycles to a higher temperature, we see a shift by greater than 20% at 400 degrees Fahrenheit. This shift makes every K value out of spec for the C1728 product standard. This creates questions with regards to the design of the use of this material in applications where you may need more insulation than you currently have designed. Let's talk briefly about hybrid systems. Hybrid systems can be the best of both worlds. From a performance standard, you get, if you have a hybrid system with calcium silicate or perlite on the exterior, you get the compressive resistance, the compressive strength, the impact resistance that you would like for a long-term durable solution in order to not compress the jacketing and allow for water infiltration into your system. You still get a lower profile because you're using the microporous hydrophobic blanket. Also, it can be less costly if you use a lower cost material like fiberglass or mineral on the exterior in order to reduce the cost of the system. So when we look at the corrosive potential of InsulThin HT, this is the same test method that we have been discussing, ASTM C1617. You can see, however, there's a data point above the deionized water. It still meets the ASTM product standard because it requires a corrosion loss rate less than 1 part per million chloride solution. You can see that line is up near 38 mass loss corrosion limit. So the questions that we typically get, why would I use InsulThin HT over a silica aerogel blanket? The performance is more consistent. We showed that with regards to the thermal shift. It has better corrosion mitigation if you look at C1617, which is the widest accepted corrosion mitigation standard and test method. Blankets, however, should be used for specific applications because of their higher cost. You should look at hybrid solutions as a potential way of mitigating those costs to get the benefits of both molded products as well as thin blanket products. So why would you use InsulThin HT instead of a molded product? The primary reason is clearance or installation efficiency. Clearance with respect to space constraints and installation efficiency with respect to larger diameter pipes, vessels, and equipment. We typically get the question of how we handle elbows and fittings. A lot of the times this is up to the contractor's discretion. We do, however, have laser cut elbows. However, some contractors prefer to field fabricate fittings for elbows, T's, etc. out in the field. Now that we've covered thin blanket materials, we're moving on to mineral wool. Johns Manville's mineral wool has many benefits. It's lightweight, facilitates fabrication and installation very easily. Most of the material is 8 pounds per cubic foot. It's easy to cut. However, there are drawbacks with mineral wool as well. It's fibrous in nature, which, while good for noise control, it's also bound together by binder. That binder may oxidize at 450 degrees Fahrenheit. Also, it's not very impact resistant. If you have it on the exterior of your insulation system and you've got a jacketing that's not very thick, say 016 aluminum, and you step on it, you may compress the jacketing, allowing for water ingress into the system. So when we look at the various products with regards to mineral wool insulations, there are pipe products, board products, and pipe and tank wrap. We'll go through each of these on the next slide. Johns Manville's mineral wool product performance has an operating temperature of up to 1200 degrees Fahrenheit. The compressive strength, as I mentioned, is fairly low. It is not water resistant and does not have the corrosion inhibitor. The densities can be 8 pounds per cubic foot with respect to pipe insulation and up to 12 pounds per cubic foot with respect to board insulation. Mineral wool, however, is a phenomenal sound attenuator. When we look at the first slide here, we're talking mainly about mineral wool pipe insulation materials. These range from high cost to low cost. Min Wool 1200 pipe, which is a mandrel wound product specifically for piping applications, is a fairly high cost product. The remaining three are a kerfed, V-grooved, precision cut V-grooved fabricated product out of board. The first two products here, Min Wool 1200 pipe insulation and Min Wool 1200 preformed pipe insulation, are both factory formed, which means that when they arrive at the job site or when they arrive in a distributor's warehouse, they're already formed to fit a specific pipe size. The remaining two on this slide, Min Wool 1200 field formed as well as Min Wool 1200 precision cut, are formed in the field to fit precision diameters. The difference between these two products, while they look the same, the first one, Min Wool 1200 field formed, ships flat. There is glue already applied in the grooves, so that when you form it in the field, it remains formed in that pipe shape. Min Wool 1200 precision cut, however, does not have that glue in the grooves, and therefore when it arrives on the job site and you form it, you must band it quickly in order to form it to the pipe. Both of those products are exceptional products when job sites have space limitations, because they take up less space, because they ship flat rather than preformed in boxes. Moving on to mineral wool bats and boards. We produce two products, industrial board as well as flexible bat. Industrial board is a rigid mineral wool board specifically for flat ducts, cavities, fabrication, and other applications that require rigidity. Min Wool 1200 flexible bats are a flexible mineral wool board, and they're more applicable for cylindrical ducts, turbines, large diameter vessels, applications along those lines. These products, as I mentioned, are available in densities from 4 pounds all the way up to 12 pounds per cubic foot. The next set of products that I'd like to talk about are mineral wool blankets and fittings. Min Wool 1200 pipe and tank wrap is a foiled face continuous mineral wool blanket. We only produce this in foiled facing at this time, However, we're evaluating a new application with a glass facer on this product. The Minwool 1200 Lamella Tank Wrap is a faced segmented mineral wool blanket. Again, applicable more for installation around large diameter pipes, equipment, and vessels. We also produce a Minwool 1200 metal mesh blanket that can either have galvanized steel as the metal mesh or stainless steel as the metal mesh. We see these products being used in high vibration, high temperature environments. Additionally, not on this page, we do produce a full line of fittings, mineral wool fittings, out of our Houston facility in order to accommodate your needs from an elbow standpoint. If we look at the corrosive potential of mineral wool in the C1617 test method, mineral wool passes the requirements of the standard. It may not pass the best, but it does pass. So if you're looking at that scale of A to D, it may be a D on that scale. However, it still passes. One of the first questions that we get with regards to mineral wool is, what is the best temperature range for mineral wool? It depends on the conditions. So if you've got a high temperature, high vibration environment, that high temperature will oxidize the binder, and that vibration may cause the fibers to settle. Gravity actually does work. Can mineral wool be made hydrophobic? Well, with enough hydrophobic agent, mineral wool or any product can be made hydrophobic. However, again, hydrophobicity is dependent on temperature. At 600 degrees, the hydrophobic agents will oxidize, and at that point in time, the material will no longer be hydrophobic. Finally, can mineral wool be used for passive fire protection? There's only one mineral wool product that can be used for passive fire protection. API 521 calls out specifically metal mesh blanket for passive fire protection. As we look at passive fire protection, however, there may be better options, especially in high temperature conditions. Moving to accessories, Johns Manville produces 3 types of accessories. Insulate is a protective coating that typically goes on the exterior of the insulation material to protect both the insulation as well as the pipe. Calbond Gold is an adhesive that's typically used to make fittings, mitered elbows, T's, etc., where you glue the components together in order to have a solid fitting for your application. Calcoat 127 is an insulating cement blend that offers excellent thermal properties. This is good for filling voids, making sure that the system is completely encapsulated in order to provide consistent thermal properties within your insulation system. And with that, I will turn it back over to Kim so she can discuss the additional resources that Johns Manville has with respect to our website and other opportunities for education.
Great, thank you, Hal. So before we do get into the questions, like he said, I do want to go over a couple additional resources that we have, and these are to help educate yourself and your team, and even offer additional benefits as you're going through specifications. So what you can see right now is the NEMA 3E Plus tool. Now, this is free and it's available from NEMA, but what we've actually done is we've partnered with NEMA to give you output numbers that are specific to JM products. So while the standard NEMA 3E Plus tool is actually designed to help you establish approximated insulation thicknesses based on generic material performance, the JM NEMA 3E Plus tool is actually got product information that's specific to JM products. So if you know you want to use or specify JM product, you can actually use this tool to establish the appropriate insulation thickness for the specific JM product that you'd like to use. So the second resource I'd like to talk about is our blog. Now, we both write and curate content for our blog, so this means we not only rely on our own technical experts at JM, but we're also going out there and finding information from technical experts throughout the industry. Now, our blog topics hit on targeted technical information, the latest news in the industry, scientific details that are critical to successful insulation system design, and we've even, when we come up with new research, when we come up with new studies, we even use this blog as a resource to help get that information out there. So finally, I'd like to discuss the exclusive content section of our website. So since you can't always make the webinars, and sometimes there are even technical difficulties when you're watching the webinar, as I said earlier, we do record each of our webinars and post them on the website, and we do that in the exclusive content portal. So in addition to the webinars, you'll actually also find white papers and product information sheets, that sort of thing. And this is a great resource where you can really dive into the details of products and information. So for everyone who attended the live webinar today, I would like to comment that we're going to be getting a certificate of completion out to you by Friday. And this is basically a 1-hour certificate of completion you can submit for professional development hours. So with that, let's go ahead and get into some of the questions that we had today. And the first question, Hal, is it true that even hydrophobic materials are susceptible to water vapor ingress?
When we think about hydrophobic materials mean that the material itself will not absorb bulk water. So as far as water vapor passing through those hydrophobic materials, it is very possible that can happen.
So once the hydrophobicity is worn off?
Well, after the hydrophobicity is worn off, the bulk water will actually infiltrate the material as well. So it becomes a water absorber rather than a water repeller.
Okay. Here's one that's pretty unique. This might actually need referral after the webinar, but it says, I'm looking for recommendations on a piping insulation able to be exposed to and even potentially submerged in sanitary sewage in a vault at a wastewater treatment facility.
That's a very unique application, and I'd like for one of our regional technical managers to reach out to that individual to answer their question and work through the design considerations.
All right, great. Here's the next question, and that is, do you offer super Firetemp products in pipe form?
We don't offer super Firetemp products in pipe form. However, our super Caltemp Gold 1700 product is available in V-groove block, which means that you're able to take that material and break it around a specific diameter pipe.
All right, the next question is, do you have installation instructions for InsulThin HT?
We do have installation instructions for InsulThin HT. They're available at www.jm.com.
Excellent. This one's pretty unique as well, and that is, could you explain more about stress corrosion cracking of austenitic stainless steel, austenitic stainless steel, and why it happens in relation to insulation systems?
It's a function of corrosion, and related to that corrosion, as we look at stress corrosion cracking, it's very similar to corrosion cracking on carbon steel. I'd like to address that one offline with the specific individual who has asked that question.
All right, and the next one is, can I use products that aren't JM products as part of a hybrid system with InsulThin HT?
You can do that. However, since these systems are not guaranteed, we cannot warranty the fact that those products will work together. If we use Johns Manville materials with Johns Manville materials, it's much easier for us to understand how the performance of that solution will work.
All right. The next question is, should I be concerned about the new OSHA regulations surrounding crystalline silica and calcium silicate?
So we've done a number of testing items at our facilities because we trim the calcium silicate. So we do create dust in our facilities as we're manufacturing Thermo 1200 calcium silicate materials. While we did this, we did respirable limits and really understood that the respirable limit, the amount of dust that we created during the cutting and trimming of our product is below the respirable limits for OSHA. We do have a technical bulletin associated with this that we can provide anyone who requests it.
All right, what's the operating temperature recommendation on a mineral wool metal mesh blanket?
Again, you know, you have a binder within that product that is going to oxidize at 450 degrees. And so above that, you have the potential for a system to be loose. The metal mesh on that product does provide additional support for the fibers in the material. However, if you've got a high vibration environment, there is a potential for those fibers to settle and create gaps in your insulation solution.
All right, the next question is, does JM offer any water-resistant mineral wool?
We are in development of creating a water-resistant mineral wool for our pipe and board insulations for the industrial segment of the market. We currently have that technology for the commercial segment of the market in our JM Cladstone product for exterior walls.
Okay. Would you have any recommendations for an insulation product for a pipe that might be submerged in water?
Pipe submerged in water, again, is a very unique design consideration, and we'd like to take that offline and address that with the individual asking the question, have one of our regional technical managers reach out to them.
All right. Do you also sell jacketing?
We do not sell jacketing. It is a product and a very important component with respect to the insulation system. There's a number of different types of jacketing out there. Metal is the most common, aluminum, stainless steel. However, there are glass-reinforced fiber products as well as polymeric products that are used in jacketing. In fact, we had a unique application that came to us last week, which was a EPDM jacketed mechanical system.
All right, where can I find installation instructions for your products?
You can find the installation instructions for our products on our website at www.jm.com.
I think I'd actually like to add to that. There are certainly a number of contractors associations that also offer and promote standardized installation methods, and that's certainly where you can find best practices as well.
Thank you for bringing that up. The MICA manual is what's most commonly referred to when asking about details with regards to installation.
All right, can you briefly describe the pros and cons of mineral wool versus fiberglass pipe insulation?
So there are different materials. Fiberglass is more silica-based. You've got rocks. Essentially, we use 4 different types of rock material in our mineral wool. Mineral wool can also be slag-based, which means that they use scrap from steel operations with respect to production of the fibers for mineral wool. Typically, if we look at the temperature ratings for fiberglass versus mineral wool, fiberglass are at lower temperature ratings. There's also different classification within the ASTM standard for fiberglass versus mineral wool as well.
All right. Can Thermo 1200 be made completely hydrophobic?
It can be made completely hydrophobic. However, there are market conditions like price that would prevent us from being able to do that effectively and bring it to market in a cost-effective manner such that it would be used in the market.
So our next question is, can JM's Zeston PVC jacketing/fittings be used to jacket IIG's mineral wool or calcium silicate insulation products?
While we haven't tested that here at JM, we have proposed solutions for various applications. However, the application that comes to mind initially to me is food processing. If you've got a frying facility that's recirculating hot oil, we've proposed solutions for that before that utilize calcium silicate with a Zeston jacketing in order for ease of cleaning within that food processing facility.
So our next question is, on a multiple layered application, if the hydrophobic nature of the base layer has oxidized, does it matter because the outer layer is still hydrophobic?
I think that depends. So if you've got water infiltration into your system and it's able to get behind the initial layer of insulation material that still remains hydrophobic and it can get next to the pipe, now you've got a material that will absorb water and act as a sponge next to the pipe. That's not a good condition for corrosion under insulation. Great,
thanks, Hal. So we've got a couple more questions that seem to be more along the lines of ones you'd want to take offline. So we're going to go ahead and wrap that up today. As I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, there will be a survey as soon as we end this webinar, and we'd really appreciate it if you take a little time to offer your feedback. Additionally, if you have any questions that you weren't able to ask today or any of the questions that we didn't get to today, you can submit them via the survey and we'll actually respond to you directly via email. Also keep an eye on your inbox. We'll have that certificate of completion to you by Friday. So, and as I said earlier, a webinar of the recording will be posted to our exclusive content section of the website. So if you missed any part of the presentation or if you want to share it with any of your colleagues, this will be available to you to do that as well. Otherwise, thank you very much for your time attending today. We hope you found the information useful and relevant, and if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us directly via the survey or via email. So take care and enjoy the rest of your week, and happy holidays, everybody.